Hi, everyone. We're here today to talk to you a bit about Senegal and specifically Le Plan Senegal Emergent, or the Senegalese Emergence Plan in English, and answer the question, is Senegal really emergent or emerging? Today's me, Quinn, and Vasilis. I'll be starting off with a brief background on Senegal and the program, and Vasilis will be looking at drawbacks, obstacles to the program, and also some conclusions we've drawn. So before we dive into Le Plan Senegal Emergent, or the PSE, as we refer to it in our paper, French acronym for the program, I wanted to start with, a glance at Senegal's past, specifically through a quote by the first Senegalese president, Léopold Sédar Senghor, on his plan for social and economic development. It goes as such: we must first make a survey of our riches, our potentialities, and our shortcomings. Not only our material riches, potentialities, and shortcomings, but also technical and human ones. The plan for social and economic development is then drawn up on this basis of this survey. So this gives us an indication that there have been social and economic development plans put forth by presidents during their mandates in Senegal's past, with each one to varying effectiveness and varying degrees of success. And today we're going to analyze that with Macky Sall's plan, the PSE. But very quickly before we do that, it's good to have an idea of Senegal today, primarily through the facts and figures below. Just to give you a regional awareness, it is where the Sahel meets the lower section of West Africa. So you have a little bit of pastoralist, nomadic culture and agriculturalist culture between various ethnic groups. And we see that in this first statistic. There are 15.8 million people and over 20 ethnic groups within Senegal. Projection by the World Bank in 2018, and a GDP of 24.1 billion USD as of 2018, according to the World Bank as well. Another interesting statistic to keep in mind is that the literacy rate of 69.5% among 15 to 24-year-olds, according to UNESCO in 2018. And that's a S-shaped development. Immediately after independence, those who received French education had higher literacy rates. Then there was a 10-year gap where education was still being developed in the newly independent Senegal. And then it rises again within this 15 to 24-year-old age range. And that also shows some of the development that's happened in the past 8 years through the PSE. Also, keep in mind some socioeconomic and political linkages Senegal has, specifically in ECOWAS. There's a hub for ECOWAS. You'll find one of the headquarters in Dakar. Do not take a picture of it. I did that, and a armed guard will get very angry at you and ask you to delete the photo. It's also a member of the French military Opération G5, which is important to keep in mind as we talk about possible extremism between the different forms of Islam between Mali, Mauritania, and Senegal, and some different ethnic hostilities in the area. An overview of the structure of our paper in this presentation: we have the PSE itself, the role of outside investment and aid in implementing the PSE, drawbacks of this investment, i.e. concessions and debt accumulation, as well as external obstacles to the PSE's success, i.e. recent oil discoveries and the paradox of plenty, political upheavals, and economic and monetary relationships with France, as well as that aforementioned extremism component. We have the PSE. Le Plan Senegal Emergent was created by the former geologist Macky Sall and now president of Senegal on his election format Yoonu Yokkute, or in English, a path to real development vis-a-vis the Plan Senegal Emergent. The development strategy was choreographed by the international consulting firm McKinsey & Company, as well as with private and public sector partners and the Senegalese civil service. The goals are as such: bringing about a structural transformation of the economy, promoting human capital, and enabling good governance. On that last component, we have this quote by Macky Sall on the left-hand side: people must see that in Africa we are capable of setting an example, and that power is an end, not an end in and of itself. That was in 2015 when he lowered the presidential mandate from 8 years to 5 years, which is a huge step according to international observers for good governance. So the scope of PSE and its reforms, it comprises 27 flagship projects and 17 major reforms that seek to improve the agricultural, energy, education, health infrastructure, information, communication technology, and the financial and tourism services of Senegal. So it's got a wide berth of development objectives. Its macroeconomic goals are to increase annual average GDP by 8%, create 600,000 formal jobs, and place Senegal on a path to industrialization and to attain emerging country status by 2035. When we look at the progress of this plan, there are some key statistics to keep in mind that have arrived since 2013. The structural transformations of the economy are as such. Senegal has maintained GDP growth between 6.1 to 6.9% between 2015 and 2018. This isn't the 8% goal outlined to meet the 2035 emerging country status of the PSE, but it is a significant improvement from prior decades where growth was stagnated at 3 to 4.5% on average. Senegal cut its deficit down from 8% in 2011 to 5.1% in 2015. That's a huge plus to wreak outside investment, which we'll talk about on the next slide. And in 2015, Senegal achieved 0.1% inflation, being an exceptional case in ECOWAS, who set the goal at 3%. Promoting human capital, this is mostly economic. The Atlantic Council in 2015 critiqued the PSE and said that it would need to provide better energy costs and more infrastructure to increase urban and agricultural immigration and development. This is seen in the Semagalou Dam and Manantali Dam in the north and south of Senegal. It's also seen in the Senegambia Bridge crossing the Gambia River and creation of the Dakar Blaise Airport train system, which have all happened under the PSE in the past 8 years. Good governance, that's something Senegal was known for prior to Macky Sall's presidency, with high voter turnout, civil society participation, and with Macky Sall, the reduction of presidential term limits. However, the back end of this is that Transparency International or Amnesty International gave it a transparency rating of 45, stagnated across the past 8 years. So transparency has not gone up in that time. To meet the infrastructural developments, we have figures on ODA and figures on outside investment. The key things to keep in mind are that French, US, UK, and OECD aid to Senegal primarily helps the governance components, and it's done a good job at that. But figures on outside investment can be more interesting. Senegal reached a high of FDI at 6.4 billion at the end of 2019 from new investors like China, Turkey, and to a lesser extent, North Africa, in countries like Morocco and Libya. Outside investment ODA is vital. Again, ODA gives crucial funding to local NGOs and international NGOs that focus on issues like child and women's rights, government transparency, education, and democratic participation, while outside investment gives vital resources towards remedying those two major obstacles the Atlantic Council outlined: energy costs and infrastructure. And we see a figure below about Chinese dam projects reducing energy costs throughout Senegal. So, Vasilis, I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you, Quinn. So, hello everyone. This is Vasilis, and we're talking about Senegal and the PSE, the Plan Senegal Emergent. So, Quinn has talked about the history of Senegal, kind of like some background, and talked about the plan, the three outlines, which is structural transformation of the economy, promoting human capital, and then promoting good governance. Like Quinn said, the plan has been ongoing and it's actually making headway. For example, with the structural transformation of the economy, keeping the inflation down, reducing the debts, have been very good trends for the execution of the plan. When it comes to promoting human capital, the construction of the dams help create more electricity for the populace, and also the construction of a bridge over the Gambian River also helps with transportation. And then with good governance, like Quinn said, what do you call it? Senegal has been known for its good governance even before Macky Sall, but during Macky Sall's presidency, there was the reduction of the presidential term limits, presidential term, so that they don't spend as much time in office, which is a good sign which is a sign of positive governance. Some drawbacks to the PSE and the use of outside investments and overseas development aid is the first thing, sovereignty and self-determination. As is the case with many African nations, there is the need for foreign investments to kind of like fund development projects. But especially in the past 10 years with China and like East Africa, there have been doubts or worries about determination and the ability to make decisions that are beneficial for the nation itself. And so this is also a problem that we might encounter in Senegal. Economic handicapping and COVID-19, like, I'll put them together. As one of the another thing about foreign investment is that to pay back anything that, like, the debt, or to kind of like as a way of balancing both sides of the deal, Senegal might end up making concessions of public property to make due on the projects and the trade deals that they have made. And this could end up impacting the economic revenue streams for Senegal in the future. Like with its very new and upcoming oil and gas industry and mining industries, like there is worry that it could be a problem moving forward. Yeah, next. Some obstacles to the PSA. So the first one is that it's a presidential mandate, and this is something kind of like just a side note kind of obstacle, just because it doesn't have to be an obstacle. It could just be very much like Macky Sall introduced this idea, but this idea would continue on till its deadline in 2035. But there is the likelihood that it could be one of those projects that are deprioritized with the new administration. And so that is something to look at as the plan moves into its as the plan develops. Then is focus on infrastructure. Even though infrastructure is definitely a key thing that needs to be developed in Senegal and over the continent, really, for a plan like the PSA that aims to develop Senegal into a middle income economy by the year 2035, infrastructure is just one key aspect, and it has to also be followed up with even more work on the human development and governance side, because it's through this collective work that it can really achieve the goals that it's set for itself. Next slide. Yeah, and delays and current infrastructural shortcomings. So an Atlantic Council report kind of like stated that energy costs would be also a hindrance in developing the PSA. But then there's also like kind of like the cost of labor and how much skilled labor is local, is like can be found in Senegal for the projects that it's undertaking. Even with the construction and expansion of the airport train, there were delays that kind of like point to a trend of possibly always waiting for the projects to finish, and the projects finishing after it's supposed to have been done. And that in itself presents an obstacle to the PSA. It kind of shows that even if it's moving as it should be moving, it might be slower than expected. Then conclusions is Senegal Emergent. So that's this is a very difficult question. Okay, not too difficult. It's more there needs to be much more taken into account, and the definition of emerging needs to be kind of like clarified when it comes to, is Senegal emerging in terms of like as its economy been growing, then yes. But is Senegal going to be a middle income country with a more industrialized economic sector? That is on the fence. But right now, kind of like looking at Senegal's geopolitical history and like with its stability, its the democracy that's been stable, its economy that's been very much stable as well. That's all a positive for the PSA, and it just shows that there is a possibility that it can achieve its goals. Yes, the PSA also is a good plan, but the current execution can be seen as insufficient. And so, like with the three outlines of the PSA are necessary. So that's promoting the structural transformation of the economy, promoting human capital, promoting good governance. These are all very important steps to be taken to see a new Senegal. But right now, the execution seems a bit like, okay, we just need to watch it a bit more to see if it's going to reach the points that it needs to reach. There is, as well as kind of like taking, being more forceful about the human development and governance and good governance aspect of the plan. There also needs to be a reevaluation of the relationship with France, for example, and the CFA franc, that, and also other current trade deals that place Senegal as this raw material exporting type of economy. For the PSA to really succeed, it needs to kind of like, Senegal needs to really shift its focus and kind of like focus more on industry and how it can not, so that it's not just an economy that pushes out raw materials for other people to process and send back to Senegal as finished goods. But yeah, so that's basically the Plan Senegal Emergent. Yeah, what, how do you do?
Yeah, I mean, and that's about the end of our presentation. We've got our bibliography right here. If you want to check out our paper a little more in depth, feel free.
Okay, yes,
Have a good day.
yes. Thank you.
Legi, as they might say in Senegal. So, bye-bye.
Okay.